Hello everybody, this is Havoc with a quick forward before we get into the battle. Deathmaster Snikch and the new Clan Eshin units you are about to see are part of the Shadow and the Blade DLC releasing December 12th. A huge thanks to Creative Assembly for the pre-announcement access. Now on to the battle. Among the Skaven, there are few rules to live by and even fewer to fight by. Very little is out of the question, and fighting among different clans is nothing out of the ordinary as they scavenge the world for new territory to take over, new sources of food to devour, or simply to kill one another, filled with the same evil that spawned their race. There is one clan that operates rather differently, one that sees beyond mere conquest, a clan for hire operating in the dark and in secretly on the behest of others. Clan Eshin, led by Deathmaster Snikch, is that clan. Deathmaster Snikch and his agents are the most feared secret operatives in the world, capable of subterfuge actions that few others possess. When a problem arises that needs serious attention, the greater clans approach Clan Eshin to do their dirty work. It is through one of these contracts that Deathmaster Snikch finds himself in Middenland, at the pass of Grimminhagen, sent to stop a Grey Seer of Clan Pestilins from ravaging lands further south. For what purpose does one clan have to stop another, Snikch does not know, nor does he care. It's food, money, and bigger contracts in the future that interest him and his clan. Deathmaster Snikch's infamy is only exceeded by the mystery which surrounds his whereabouts at any particular time. Lord Sneak ensures that this is the case. As long as no one knows the location of his chief assassin, no one can feel safe. Of how many ships have been sunk or foundered with mysterious leaks or severe rigging, of how many towns have been consumed by fire or pestilence released from the sewers below, or even how many people the Deathmaster has killed in his lifetime, no one truly knows. It is only on the battlefield that the Deathmaster's presence can at least be known to dwell, stalking his victims, concealed beneath the magical cloak of shadows, its ensorcelled power strong enough to make a mockery of the most intricate defenses. Where the stealthy tread of Deathmaster Snikch falls, no prince or warlord is safe from his blades. So here he sits under the gaze of a long-dead dragon, fortified at a crossroads in the pass. It is at this point in the pass the Grey Seer has to make his choice. Fight Snikch here, or risk taking his army around, adding hundreds of miles to the journey with no guarantee of success and high probability of starvation. He chooses to fight, an easy one for him, considering that his army has 3.5 times the numbers of his dark-shadowed opponent. Snikch, however, seems little fazed by numbers and with good reason. He has rats with some nasty potential.
Deathmaster Snikch.
Beside him on the battlefield is his Eshin sorcerer, wielding magic appropriately under the lore of stealth. With a host of spells to summon, he is useful for concealing units in desperate situations, as well as dealing magic damage in various forms. At his rear is a team of poisoned wind mortars, lobbing not actually poison, but concentrated warpstone gas globes, causing devastating pain as they spread among its target. To their right are the avalanche mortars, a regiment of renown that takes the wind mortars a step further with death globes, a more stable version of the warpstone gas that hangs in the air longer, spreading further, and thus able to take out more rats at one time. On the slope in front of Snikch's artillery are his warpfire throwers, a gift from Clan Scryer from a previous contract. They'll spew warpfire, a flood of odoriferous flames, where any unit fleeing in panic would be considered lucky to have escaped death. These rats only have one command: attack anything that comes into the middle pass, even if it means hitting the heavily armored, halberd-wielding storm vermin that are defending them. Flanked on either side are Snikch's new recruits, Warp Grinders. They're a glass cannon troop designed to tunnel under or through city walls, excels in piercing armor with their grinders, and can cause small concentrated earthquakes to damage and disorient the enemy. Snikch's right flank is covered by regiments of Eshin triads, clan-specific infantry with their Weeping Blade, covered in a corrosive venom that eats away at even the thickest of plate armor. Designed to take down large monsters, combined with the ability to destroy armor, the Eshin Triad are a staple of the clan's armies, able to fight against any faction. The Triad are covered by rattling guns, which will provide suppressing fire to aid in holding the flank. Able to deal a lot of damage, even more so against infantry, make rattling guns a necessity when Clan Eshin has to fight against fellow Skaven. The left flank is well secured and Snikch is least concerned, as it holds not only his assassin agent as its captain, but the core of Clan Eshin, Death Runners. It's the Death Runners and assassins that carry out the most high-risk contracts, fully knowing that these missions might end in their deaths. And the uncanny ability to dodge blades and missiles makes them lethal in even the most hopeless situations. Those Death Runners that have survived what should have been suicidal contracts formed Vistrin's Death Squad, a regiment of renown that is faster and more resistant than their less experienced brethren. Snikch's assassin was handpicked long ago out of the aforementioned Death Squad to lead his Shadowrunners on their missions and to carry out those that needed a guarantee of silence and anonymity. You'll never quite see this assassin, and surely never recognize what he is before a blade cuts your throat or goes through your stomach. As the battle begins, the Grey Seer's massive swarm of rats surges forward between the gaps of the pass. Swarms of shielded clan rats, storm vermin, and night runners are followed closely by plague monks, rat ogres, and a handful of death runners, themselves under contract by the employers of the Great Seer. The first attack comes from the enemy's warp lightning cannon, focusing their fire on the very vulnerable and easily seen storm vermin, taking chunks out of the rats' lines with every bolt. Yet Snikch's wind mortars and death globes now have their own target in range, and the decision to push most of his army up the main gap are going to cost the Great Seer, as his troops are hammered by near constant artillery bombardment. Those that don't die from the explosions are quickly suffocated by the gases released, with any survivors running away as fast as their rat legs can carry them. While the warp lightning cannons continue their volleys against the storm vermin, the rest of the Seer's army reaches the flanks, pushing up the gaps wide enough for a couple of units at a time. Rattling guns lay down machine gun-like fire to stem the approaching waves, as the Death Runners on the left flank are sent off by the assassin to take on several units of clan rats, an easy task for the battle-hardened, corrosion-dipped, dual sword-wielding infantry. On the other side of the battlefield, the ground begins to tremble. As the Seer's clan rats crash into the triad, monsters crest the gap: rat ogres and a hell pit abomination. This horrid and twisted machination of Skaven flesh and bone, the hell pit abomination would melt the morale of almost anything, crushing and devouring anything else that stood its ground. That is, unless you're a triad. Designed to fight creatures just like the ones facing them, the triad carved through the rat ogres. The hell pit abomination needs a little bit more convincing. Not everything is going so well for Snikch though. By the time the flanks were engaged, the center is in pure chaos. The storm vermin, decimated by the warp lightning cannons, were set on by the Seer's death runners, who sliced through them swiftly, not seeming to care that they were killing their own brethren. The poison wind mortars broke rank to catch routing rats, exposing them to a quick and painful death between the enemy and their own warp fire throwers. All that's left to defend them against the plague month censer bearers' flails are the warp grinders, rats ill-suited to fight against such weapons. As warp fire rains down on the plague months and now approaching rat ogres, the warp grinders are forced to engage, and their morale falls faster than the warp fire can aid in their defense. Snikch leaps into the melee, and his quick attacks, followed by another volley of warp fire, are enough to push back the monks and the ogres, giving the middle ground a second to breathe before another round of Plague Months enters the killing field. On the right, the Triad were falling to an overwhelming number of Skaven-Slave spears when the Hell Pit Abomination, which the Triad believed had ran off for good, came back for another serving. The mix seemed too much for the already distressed Triad, and despite finally taking down the Abomination, briefly fled to regroup up the hill. Not soon after they regrouped, however, the morale of the enemy flank broke, no doubt in part from the deaths suffered from the rattling gun still tearing through their ranks. The Eshin sorcerer has not been idle throughout this battle, though his presence was not widely noticed by the enemy. Crafting spells of stealth on his allies and engaging briefly in melee himself, he turns the tide of the battle at the center when casting a spell of filth, weakening every aspect of any enemy within its area. Its continued effects, combined with Snikch's unnaturally fast attacks and repeated rounds of warp fire, are enough to clear the center of the Grey Seer's troops, leaving the Grey Seer and his Plague Priest to fight against Snikch and his sorcerer. Their hesitancy to push the attack while the Master Assassin and his army was at its most vulnerable would be their undoing. Allowed time to regroup, and with the Death Runners pushing towards the Warp Lightning cannons, the Grey Seer had now lost any hope to win the battle. Warp fire and Gatling rounds swarmed the Grey Seer and his priest as Snikch dodged his way around it all until there was nothing left but for the enemy to run. The battle at the pass of Grimminhagen was over. The Great Seer had lost nearly all of his army, his rats now scattering all across Middenland and the lands in the north. Snikch hacks down both the Grey Seer and his priest, but pushes the remnant of his army no further. The Great Clan contract only stated he defeat the opposing army, not run them down into oblivion. Snikch lost 2/3 of his own army in the battle, but he'll have no issues replacing them. Countless tens of thousands of Clan Eshin rats would kill their own brethren to fight in the Deathmaster's army. The spoils of his contracts are too great to worry about something as trivial as death. And spoils there will be the size of mountains for this contract, for whomever wanted this Grey Seer defeated was desperate to succeed, and payment was very handsome indeed. Thank you for watching one of the first cinematic narrative battles for this channel. I hope you enjoyed this fictional scenario. As mentioned in the beginning, this battle was made from content in the upcoming Shadow and the Blade DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. If you really enjoyed this cinematic battle, subscribe and comment below, and check out the Book of Choyer's channel, as they are a huge inspiration behind the idea of this video. Stick around the channel in the coming weeks for more content from the Shadow and the Blade DLC. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next video.